I'm online. Alright, hey, welcome tonight to the Zazazu vidcast. Tonight's topic, we're going to try a little bit of an experiment. I was supposed to talk about promotion, but I'm going to defer that. Request from Lori and her team, who were wanting to start to come to terms with this thing called permissions on Google. So we're going to try a different format tonight. I'm going to try some actual live coding to explore this feature. So I sort of used it, I explored it, like, hey, that looks interesting. I want to do something with that. I haven't got to it yet. But an interesting way to learn is to learn together, or, poke at it and see what we get. So, in a nutshell, permissions are something that Google Home has that is not on Alexa. It's sort of, I'm seeing it as an alternative to account linking. The main purpose of account linking is that you check a particular checkbox, and what happens is when you then activate the skill, it says, hey, you've got a link to an account. And you then get deferred to that page, and you sort of type in a username, a password to connect to it, or whatever like this. It's notoriously difficult. I have never got it to work except following the step-by-step instructions for login with Amazon on Alexa. I haven't tried it yet on Google Home, but from what I've heard from Lori and other people is that it doesn't work yet. So that's not something that's there yet. But they do have this other thing that came up. It wasn't on the beta. I just sort of saw it there. I'm like, oh, that looks interesting. Something called permissions. Okay, and the model here seems to be very much like Android. If you've messed with Android at all, excuse me, I have a affectionate cat. Yes, classified. If you've messed with Android at all, they have this permission system whereby your app declares, I need these specific permissions. And when you install the app, and I'm sure many of you have installed apps, if you use an Android person, pops up and says, hey, I want, your life history, and apps have a reputation for asking for far more than they really need, and then they sell that information to make money. It's a great way to monetize. Well, that's anyways. And you're supplied, usually it's permissions to do things with or to your phones. Like, I want to be able to know where your location is. I want to be able to use your disk, or your network, or see your network status, or know every single person you ever talked to in your contacts, so things like that. They're not quite the sort of same range of permissions that you've got on Google Home. It's more information stuff, like, they do have location there, which is a little odd, but, especially since they have both course location and find location. It's like, okay, knowing your zip code, yeah, sure, that's fine, but knowing your exact longitude and latitude? I don't know, I guess, if you want to do, like, an Uber skill that sends somebody to your doorway, but I don't know. No, I'm not sure I'd say yes to any skill that wanted that information. But, the idea is that in a similar way, your app can specify in the return packet saying, hey, I want to request these permissions, and that you can then get the permissions back. Well, that's what I read in the spec, and I played with it a little bit. And my knowledge to date is basically that you can do that. And when you do that, instead of actually getting your answer on the other end, it sort of pops up. You can send a little canned text with your stuff. And it says that, and then it says, hey, we want to tell, is it okay with you? I think the Alexa voice comes back. First it speaks in your skills voice, then the Alexa voice comes back and says, hey, we want to send this app, blah, blah, blah. Your email, your name, blah, blah, blah. Is that okay? And you say yes, or you say no. And when I said yes, I didn't experiment. I was like, no. When I said yes, it sent a yes intent back to the skill that did have the information in it. So that's kind of interesting. It does bring up some interesting flow situations, because it's not like this happens before anything else happens, and I don't think you necessarily have to put it in at the very start. Okay, you can put it in anywhere, which is a kind of interesting thing. But that's as far as I got. I'm looking at something else there, and I want to do a proper job of it, so that's kind of what we're going to look at tonight. Yeah, so if you've got any comments, put them in on the chat there. Somebody's asking, I don't think this chat is persisted, or if it can be, I haven't worked out how to do that yet. But I will try to read it out. Comments we got, Lori chimes in saying that we got another note from Google yesterday letting us know they were still looking into the OAuth issues on their side. So it sounds like it's still not working and trying to make it work. I guess it's hard on their side too, as well as hard on our side. Oh wow, woohoo! I feel so sorry for them. But anyhow, so that's what we're going to look at. Now, the problem statement is this. I have an app on Alexa currently called StarLanes. Little logo here, escape from my Alexa. It's a massively multiplayer role-playing game. Or not really a role-playing game. It's a massively MMO. It's a massively multiplayer online game. A bunch of people go around in starships fighting for planets or stars systems. Drum points and star systems, whatever. Whatever. It's been around for about over a year. So it's the biggest, most sophisticated, longest running game on Alexa. Not that it really gets that much love, but there you go. The way forward with this app is one thing that we discovered in doing it. StarLanes has like 40 to 50 intents. I mean, that's a lot more than most people have. And contrary to Amazon's stated sales pitch, audio interfaces can get cluttered. We wanted to add more stuff to it, but it then started having trouble really understanding what you wanted to do. The intents got confused with each other. It's not quite as simple as that. So the strategy we decided at the time was instead of adding more to that one skill, we would add more skills. So we build then StarLanes is a strategic space combat game. And we then wanted to introduce three more skills. StarSquad as a tactical space combat game. Star Trade as a star trading game. And Star Scout as an exploration game. So instead of adding all these little gameplay things to the core StarLane skill, we're going to have 4 different skills. A lot of overlap between them with these 4 different gameplay things. Now, the key here for what we're talking about tonight is the overlap. Okay. It's, I think, the only skill still out on Alexa that has in-app purchasing. As a player, you can earn talents. It's the in-game currency. You can do this by blowing things up. You can do this by listening to advertising. It's pull advertising. And at some point, you'll be able to buy these. We're just not there. And you can earn the talents. You can spend them in the game to do things. Update your ship and stuff like that. We want and since the talents are designed to be a purchasable commodity, we would like them available over all of our games, not just StarLanes, but also Star Quest and Star Trade and Star Scout. So to do that, we need to be able to work out that user 1 on StarLanes is the same as user 2 on StarSquad. And Amazon does a really good job of anonymizing IDs, and so you get this random digits and stuff like that, and you don't know, if you've got multiple skills, you don't know it's the same user in each skill. Very start, they had the same ID, and that was nice, and then they took that away. So, privacy, I can't really argue with their strategy there. It's only fair. Google looks to be doing the same. I haven't officially asked them, but I'm pretty sure it's the same sort of thing. You get different IDs and different platforms. So, we need some other way of working out that they use the same sort of thing. Account linking is the direction we're going on Amazon. When you activate the skill, you then have to go and log in with Amazon to get this stuff there. That works for us well there because we're also going to be using Pay with Amazon for, once we have a login with Amazon, we have your ID, you can go to the website, you can do Pay with Amazon to buy virtual goods, to stock up talents, etc. So that's great. Google Home, not sure where we're going there with the monetization yet, but we'll get there. We need to forge that identity on both sides. And we don't have account linking yet. Account linking is a big pain. And login with Amazon is not really the right thing we necessarily would want to use on Google Home. I mean, we know anybody with an Echo that's going to have an Amazon account. So, pretty much. We're good there. Okay, Google, we don't know. If there's a login with Gmail, it's something we have to solve that problem. It's not clear there's the out-of-box thing there. So the permissions look very interesting there. So the aim, then, is to be able to, when the skill starts up, it says, hey, do I know who this person is? Have I got this ID? Do I have an email for this ID? If I don't, let's ask for the permissions for get, amongst other things, their email address. And then once I've got that, we'll carry on and we can do the K or something like that. See how far we get. Might make it more embellished and like give them a little bit of stuff before we sort of hit them up for, hey, by the way, Reed said that this is disconnected and reconnected. Still seems to be coming up in my case monitor there, so I guess we navigated whatever that was. Success? Anyhow. Okay, so cat's still in my lap, but deal with it. Okay, so shoot questions out. Okay, lost you back. Thank you, Travis. I don't think I said anything great and significant. Anyhow, so let us then proceed. I'm going to flip over to screen share mode. So again, I thought it might also be interesting to go through. You can see my development environment. You can see the steps I go through and stuff like that. It might give you ideas for your own development environment. I'm not going to stop and kind of go into it like, oh, and here's my architecture, and here's how this works. I'll mention some things on the offside like that. If you see interesting things, either bring them up in the chat, or post them to me, and I can do future vidcasts about elements of what I have done for my development environment. There's a lot to it. In fact, the code for the libraries and stuff is, I think, larger than any one skill library. So, out there. But again, if it's something interesting, we can dive on that at another time. So let me flip over to screen share. Oh, there's a lovely recursive thing going. Okay. Pop over to. Alright, it is coming up on the monitor, great. And the cat's off my leg, great. Makes it a little easier. But trust me, if it was clawing at my leg all night, that would not be easy. So, we've got API.ai here, we've got StarSquad is loaded up. Actions Google's is enabled. So first we're going to see what it kind of looks like now. So we go into here, we hit authorize, and if you've done this before, you know how this all works. And we're going to hit preview, which will then send it and enable it for Google Home. But rather than using the actual hardware, I think I could actually launch it on the hardware this way. But we're going to use the web simulator, because then we can see the responses, and that's going to help us out. Yes, it's got the sign in. Set. I guess we're set. Okay, so we're going to say StarSquad.
Sorry, this action is not available in simulation.
Why is this not? You can tell this is live. Why StarSquad? So I did all that. That's what you do. Go here, I hit preview. So try it again. And then it should be Home Simulator. Home Simulator's here. StarSquad.
Sorry, this action is not available in simulation.
I don't think it's talked to StarSquad.
Sure, here's StarSquad.
Maybe it is.
Please use the companion app to authenticate and start using this skill.
Okay, so this is what I've got out of the box. Now, what this is actually going on here is in my stuff. Development environment here. I use Eclipse. I develop in Java. In the StarSquad application, I have a switch that says this uses account linking. Somewhere. Where's the switch for this? Oh, it's going to be more application handler. Because again, also you'll see this a lot because I know I'm going to have 4 skills. I tend to have the core stuff in core blah blah blah, and then StarSquad, star lanes, blah, blah, blah. So actually, in here, we do have here enforce linking. That's something I have in my structure to say, oh, by the way, this skill is using account linking. Now, if you look up the very top, application handler is the root class that holds all the support for all of this in it. Now, the idea here is we're going to do this instead of account linking. So, blah, 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 blah. Where is that coming from? So let's have a look. Please use the companion app. Let's see if we can find this. I might not be able to find this. Let's see where in my structure does this go. Utils, response utils. Okay. Build link request speech response. references, project. Alright, so in the root application handler, we have this interact thing. So if enforce linking is on and we don't have a linked ID, we do the following. So we're going to take a little delta here, and we're going to want to instead say that we want to do permissions. So, and we don't have a linked ID. See, it's going to kind of work a little different. Okay, let's just go, let's bubble it up into our core stuff later. So for now, I'm just going to say, let's just turn off account linking. False. To do demo, on, and we'll see what it does after that. Oh, of course, to do this, I'd need to redeploy. So we build our WAR file. Boom. And we deploy. I had a little bit of trouble with deploy the last time I was messing with stuff. So, to explain what's going on here, is when I want to update my web service is running on a instance on Elastic Beanstalk. I need to redeploy the servlets and everything else like that. I have a little script here which does a number of things. First off, it bundles up my WAR file. I have actually 3 WAR files that I'm running on one server there, because running 3 instances of a server is expensive, more expensive than running one server with 3 servlets on it, or 3 web applications on it. Yeah, that's not giving me that problem there. So it first bundles that all up, zips it up together, because you can actually deploy multiple WARs if you do it in a zip and twiddle certain levers. And then copies that up to S3, because it's a lot faster to deploy from S3 than it is uploading and deploying at the same time, and that makes for less downtime. Next thing it does is called querying users. It actually goes and talks to Starlanes and says, "Hey, is anybody currently using Starlanes?" Because you know, turning it off in the middle of people actually using it is kind of a bad user experience. So what it's supposed to do is talk to Starlanes and wait until there's no active users. When right now, for some reason, my API interface to Starlanes is not working, so that just kind of bombs out. Then it goes and talks to the Lambda proxy. I have a Lambda proxy, which Alexa talks to, and be quiet, Alexa. That then talks to my thing, because HTTPS is hard. But it also, in here, I have no idea what this is doing. What I also use that for is I have this thing called maintenance. Alright, so as I reconnected, this time I noticed, had a look caught up on chat. Talked about the screen size. It's like, I might be able to do something about that. So the little warning was coming up, saying, blah, blah, blah. Just do this stuff all the time, and so 20, let's knock it down to, let's try that. I'll keep that for a bit. You guys let me know how that looks, and if that is better. I'm not focusing too much on the actual text here, so don't worry too much, but it's not obvious. Whoa, I see like massive amounts of flicker. Yeah, that's looking really terrible. Maybe I should put it back there. What's going on with that there? I'm not terribly familiar with this video software I'm using, so apologies to the people that are finding it hard to read at this. I will see if I can come up with a better thing for our next broadcast. Now, what I think I can do is fonts. be in general. Paris. Colors and fonts. Let's knock it up to 14. Okay, that was a little bigger there, so maybe that will tie this up. Okay. Anyhow, so it goes, checks the app, sets it into maintenance mode, and then once nobody's using it, then it's there. Then it does the whole, okay, bring the server down, move up to the next version, bring the server back up again. There's a little kickstart of the app. Starlight is actually pretty hefty, so it takes a little bit to actually get started. So it does a little calls the API to kickstart the app, to basically load everything into memory, because otherwise the first couple of times you invoke the skill it just chokes. So it does that first, that makes it better, and then pushes it out of maintenance mode. The trouble is, because it's not able to get to Starlight's API, it can't kickstart it and it can't determine that it's there, and so I have to kill this operation and turn it out of maintenance mode by hand. But that's kind of interesting because you get to see the actual how that works. I can show that to you. AWS. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, generic redirect. So here's my code here, and in fact, right at the top it says maintenance equals true, and I just change it to false. Normally the program does that for me, but because it's choking, I like that. And you can kind of see right there, there's the can, thank you for request, and for blah blah blah, undergoing maintenance, blah blah blah. And all it does, this is, what's his name's proxy. One of the most useful things that has been written, and you can see every single freaking one of my skills goes through here. But essentially, we got that simple maintenance mode, and if maintenance is on, it just returns with that canned message. Otherwise, it goes and proxies out to the skill like that. So, you know, what was originally a hack to get around the fact that HTTPS is hard to do in a way that Amazon finds acceptable, turned out to be actually a kind of useful thing here where I can gracefully degrade when I'm in maintenance mode. So that's kind of nifty. So that should be all there. It should be back up again. I should be able to go back to API.ai. Now, those of you who played with this understand that it only really enables it for like 10 minutes, so we have to go back into here and hit preview again. Okay, so now we're here. Let's head it off again, and let's say talk to StarSquad. Unexpected error. Okay, talk to StarSquad.
Sorry, this action is not available in simulation.
No. Like I said, sometimes it doesn't work the first couple of times. Let me try, Alexa, open Starlanes.
There was a problem with the requested skills response.
This is what happens, is it takes, it takes like 30 seconds to actually load everything into memory, so the first couple of times. Alexa, open Demotivate.
Well-behaved people never make history.
Alright, well that one's working, so once one's up, most of them are up. Let's just try again. Alexa, start Starlanes. Alexa, open Starlanes.
There was a problem with the requested skills response.
Still down. Alright, let's poke the back door. This is the back door into StarSquad. So what this is actually the endpoint. But I've got it set up so that it services both get and post. When the Google Home calls it with a post. But when you just put it into a browser, it calls it with a get, and for the get I use the same endpoint. I put diagnostic messages here. So this actually comes back, so it means it's up and running. So let's go back to the web simulator and give it another go. Talk to StarSquad.
Sure, here's StarSquad.
Cool.
Java.lang.illegal state exception. Jo.starsquad.data.starsquad state equals 0. Input symbol equals input. Welcome not handled.
Okay, so, right, this is better. It's not getting past that, and it's getting to the point where it's calling input.welcome, which is the launch response, which is fine. So, I think I'm just not smartly managing that. Google Home is a little weird about launch intents. They don't. Alexa has a launch intent. Yes, Alexa, be quiet. Has a launch intent and very specifically handled in a way. Google Home doesn't really. It just has intents, and it was a bit of a hack early in the beta. They eventually now have this default sort of welcome intent that gets kicked off as the first thing. So, my stuff's supposed to be able to handle that. I thought I remember putting stuff in for that, but let us see. So, let's follow, again, we can step through this, we can follow some of the actual logic. We go to the libraries. Base servlet, I think. Let's start there. Base servlet. Okay, so this is the core thing that answers. We get a post, we come into here, we go, oh look, we got a post. Is get originator, because I use the same endpoint for Alexa and for API.ai and the original Google Home low-level interface. I don't really use that anymore. And it looks at them all, and it looks at the profile of the request to work out who it's coming from, and it deals with things appropriately. So that's what the originator thing does here, and we can look at that if we want to. And it's just looks for this header field, because in Google API.ai, it's very handy. You can add extra headers, so I add an extra header for API.ai. And so I know that if that's set, I know it's going to be API.ai. If this other thing is set, I know it's Google. Otherwise, it's Alexa. So I get back the originator to work out what thing I'm talking to. And the first thing I do then is convert the actual HTTP request into this audio request bean, which is my sort of vendor-neutral request object. Okay. So what I think is happening is that when we get an API.ai request, we get all the information. At some point, I think we deal with it as a launch thing specifically. Blah, 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 blah. Let's see. Okay, maybe it's further down. So let's pop the stack to. The next thing we do then is actually get the application handler and call interact, which essentially says go and process this. Okay, so here we go. So it's looking for a specific intent ID of launch app. I think what we need to do is, where's the kindest place to put this? Okay, that's base servlet. Let's go back to the request handler. This is, we want to keep the platform specific stuff inside of here. So once we're set, somewhere down at the bottom, if, now what did it say? What's the actual intent name? Input.welcome. If input.welcome equals request.get intent. Done at that point. So where do we actually set that? Okay, here we go. Request being confidence intent ID. Okay, so the intent. Alright, yeah, this is the intent request being. It's supposed to be intent. Get intent ID. So that's that. We're going to actually just go and say request.get intent. Set intent ID to be launch. Cool. Okay. So that will get us to the next step, where we actually get into our welcome function, which is what we want to have happen. So let's shoot this up. And I'm sorry this is taking time to get to the actual permissions things, but this kind of sets the stage, because you kind of have to work out where, at what point, is the thing that you want to actually then start asking for permissions on. So I've hit deploy again. It's going to go up and shoot that up to the server. Let's just control plus zoom. Yeah, kind of works in some things. Okay. Thank you. Let's take a couple minutes for that. So, just to anticipate things, we go through the logic. You saw we were in base servlet, and the next thing it calls is this interact on the handler. Now, in here, now it should open up and launch app, and it's going to handle launch. Gets the state handler. So the way my harness works is it has this application handler and has the concept of state. Essentially, it treats every single skill like a state machine. And there's a base user state is the object that tracks the current user state and has a state thing on there. And based on that, we're going to get a state handler. So the application handler, and then we may have a number of state handlers, which are the ones that actually do the processing. So at this point, we get the handler, and then we're like, okay, now we're going to call the welcome on it. So the question is it going to get this far? I think it got this far, means it might actually get that far. I don't think this is... oops. This is all pretty trivial. Let's just look at things. Okay, because the thing is where is it getting the state from? Because that's where I expected the next problem to be, is when we go and get the state. Because if we're saving state for something, we have to be doing it based on some sort of key. Okay, it has to go into the back-end thing. And that's the big thing here, is the fact that we're going to have a user ID, but we really want to coordinate things by something that's identical to that user on the different invocations of them. The email address sounds like we're going to have the same email address. If we ask for the email address, we're going to get that back, that's fine. So this is where right now, all of my back-end data store is done based on the user ID. We need to shift that to doing it based on the email address. And that's kind of the exercise we're trying to achieve. So I'm just curious at what point, again, yeah, I wrote the harness, but I have it memorized. There's an extraordinary number of lines of code here. A lot of it's been pulled in from previous projects and stuff like that. Like, surely 3D, line segment 3D is not really something that has a lot of use in audio app. Unless we're looking at Mind Maze. Mind Maze is one of 2, 3, 4, and 5-dimensional mazes. In fact, StarSquad itself, actually, the tactical combat is 3D combat. You're sort of essentially navigating a 3D maze. But it's going to need those geometry routines. I should probably take them out of here at some point. But anyhow, it is updating, rebouncing the server. Go back to, I know that what's going to happen. So we've got the StarSquad, the data, or the model there, StarSquad app. So base state handler. Right now, StarSquad only has a single state, because I'm just doing the core stuff first. We can see in there, this is where we should get into the handle welcome. And kickstarting it. Oh, yes, I should fail. Should fail. Kickstart it by hand. Timeout is set to. Don't worry about the text on the screen. It's just as long as something comes back, I know that it's loaded up. where I go and read my mail. Alright, so I came back, so it's got much faster. That should mean the app is up and running. This has died, so that's fine. Go to Lambda. If I hit refresh, it's going to come back. Things being true. Yeah, it's true. Just changing it back to false. So it doesn't kill all my other skills. Okay. So we should be back in action. Try the web simulator. Talk to StarSquad. Might have timed out.
StarSquad isn't responding right now. Try again soon.
I don't know if that means it's timed out or the thing is still starting.
StarSquad isn't responding right now. Try again soon.
Oh, that's something else is going on here. That means the app is not up at all. Anything else running? Alexa, open Demotivate.
You should try to be satisfied with less.
Alright, well the server's running. Alexa, open Star Lanes.
There was a problem with the requested skills response.
It's probably just because it hasn't been kickstarted. This should be up and running. This is where things get annoying, because if that's not there, I now have to go and hit Lambda and download logs, try to work out what the freak is going on there. Now what did I change? All I did was change that redirected there. That should sort of stop it running. It's a bit weird. If I go to the StarSquad, no, go to Starlanes, go to the app. It's just like a little web page here. So the web server's running. The server that doesn't seem to want to run. What's that mean? StarSquad, Starlanes. Yeah, they're all not running. Alright, I'm gonna have to go to Lambda, go to Stop Beanstalk. It's all happy that's running. But logs. Request logs. Now we have to find the one for today instead of one from like last September. I don't know why it does this. It's like, I don't need that. So what's this coming up here? Is this from 5 million years ago, or is this from something recent? Hard to tell. Doesn't have a date. The only Catalina done it. Is it right? And what's today's date? January 17th. Let's put the 18th, because sometimes it's some weird time zone. It doesn't always work. No. ways to do this. Deployment doesn't help us much. So there's localhost dot. So I can try to find something that's at least 2017, 10th, 9th, 14th, 2nd, 11th, 12th, 13th, 3rd, 8th, 7th, 4th, 6th, 18th. Today? Yes, today is the 17th. Oh look, this log's from tomorrow. Yeah, that would be the one. Alright, so, what is its problem? Broken pipe. That just means something not going through. So what is this, expected token? So usually is when I get like an error into my, oh. Okay, so here we are. The API.ai stuff is coming through. And AI logic 140, which is near where I changed things, so let's, it's failing to parse the JSON, which seems really weird. Because, you know, it's not like Google decided in the last 2 minutes to change its JSON format. Just kind of odd. Why would it do that? It also doesn't explain why the servlet doesn't start. I do not know what is going on here. Let's go back to, where's my little, here's this here. Alright, so let's preview again. And let's reload this. StarSquad. Expected error. That's the same thing going on there. You can actually talk to it here, but I don't find that that's. Sometimes it like says something and it doesn't get back the. It doesn't send a user ID, and that can screw things up. So I don't normally test it through that. I put a note so it doesn't even seem to understand what I'm talking about here, which is a bit weird. I find it does that sometimes, even though I have an intent, a welcome intent. This thing is, where is it? It's a lot. It's supposed to be welcome with that and text responses because we're using a webhook. Why did that happen? Back to integrations. I'm never sure that we have to actually. I think we do have to do this because this pushes it to Google.
Sorry, this action is not available in simulation. StarSquad isn't responding right now. Try again soon.
Why I needed to talk to before, and I needed it this time. Is it actually doing the user ID conversation and the inputs intent to action main? Just I'm not sure what's going on there.
StarSquad isn't responding right now. Try again soon.
Yep. Oh, okay. How will parse STK response? speech response. Well, it could be it if there's no. It could just be the symptom it gets when it gets up. What's it, 4? 4? Oh, it's going. Alright, well, I'm going to try deploying again, just because I don't know what else to do, and we've got 15 minutes left. Deploy. Alright, starting to copy that up again. And I do apologize. Like I said, this was a bit of an experimental format. I thought that sort of watching live coding would be interesting, so we could see some of the structure and one approach that, my approach that I've been using. I'm not saying this is the best and the only approach, and I'm not really sure how this sort of scattershot approach really conveys what's going on here. I thought that would be interesting, but the fact that we haven't even got to permissions and getting close to running out of time means that maybe this is not the best approach to take. I don't know. If they get like Twitch, you're getting like millions of people sitting there watching somebody else play games. And I thought, well, hey, maybe it'd be interesting to sit there and watch somebody program. Maybe not. You guys can chime in on the comments or the follow up just to say that yeah, that was nice, Joe, but don't do that again. Research to your topic and get concrete information, which I certainly can do. So I thought it was worth a try. So we're gonna let this go up there again. While we're doing that, let me walk you through some of the more of the bizarre sort of things that I ended up doing. So, much like Alexa, Google Home requires you to have a HTTPS endpoint. Okay, they didn't at the start of the beta, and then at a uncomfortable time through the beta, they switched things and suddenly started saying you now need a HTTPS endpoint, and that really kind of threw me for a loop because I'd never gone that far with Alexa because we found this workaround, and the workaround was fine. And Google is a little more open about what the HTTPS endpoint can be, but the problem is when I flipped HTTPS on for my Elastic Beanstalk instance, that wasn't good enough. It needed some sort of public certificate. And I'm not a wizard about SSL certificates. I know people who know how this stuff works. Like, oh yeah, blah blah blah, and they just say it's not difficult, and everybody else tears their hair out. It's like, what do I have to do? And since there was time pressure because this happened late in the beta, what I ended up doing was another stupid approach to it. So here we have the Lambda proxy that we used to get around that problem in Alexa. Well, I just created a proxy for Google Home. That essentially is pretty much the same code, but it redirects to a different endpoint. And of course, the problem is this is a Lambda proxy, so it is a Lambda entry point, and Google doesn't talk to Lambda. Alexa talks to Lambda, so everything's hunky-dory there. But Google doesn't talk to Lambda; it talks to Alexa. However, there's another service that you can see it's actually rebooting here. Now it says it's green. AWS is another service. Excuse me, something called API Gateway, which is kind of nifty, and allows you to create a web endpoint for a Lambda service, which is kind of nifty. It really makes Lambda functions be callable from sort of other sort of things. That's nifty. My test harness would use this to test my Lambda skills when they used to live in as pure Lambda stuff. And again, this is another way that if you're doing pure Lambda-based skills, you can service them via. You can access them via a web endpoint, and if you have an automated, you could use curl to test them with, or something more sophisticated. Blah blah blah. It does actually even open up the interesting possibility that. Well, what happens here, as we can see, is I now have this StarSquad. I've defined as an endpoint in API Gateway, and pointed back to this Lambda skill. This Lambda function, okay, which now gives me a URL that I can call, which happens to be a HTTPS URL with an appropriate certificate on it for Google, that can get to my Lambda function, which itself proxies to my web thing that has the actual skill on it. So There's rather more levels of indirection here than I'm entirely comfortable with, but I got it working. I will go clean this up and actually go and solve the SSL problem, buy a certificate, whatever I have to do, and clean all this crap out at some point. But it does actually open the interesting possibility that since I can get Google Home calling effectively a Lambda function, in my case, what on earth was that? It was a kid stone. That, in my case, calls a proxy to something else, but you could actually write a Google Home function in Lambda. So if you like Node.js, you like programming in Node.js, and you like using Lambda, you should be able to actually program in a complete Google Home skill in Lambda. That would be kind of cool to see somebody do that. Let's see. Learn how to play Starlines. Yeah, that's one of the things with the stars. I'm just reading the chats here. Somebody's asking about how to learn how to play Starlines. Well, in theory, you just go into it and say tutorial, and the tutorial teaches you everything, but it does need some improvement to its audio interface, which is why I haven't been pushing it a lot. And that's kind of where I'm starting over again with StarSquad. I want to actually start baking some of that into it. But the wiki is not a bad place to go, so Travis got it right there. Anyhow, so that's kind of what's going on there. But let's go back to this. Let's see, it's in the kickstarting app stage, so it looks like it's gotten through. Let's see if it actually has started. So, this is going to be... Oh, see, it's loading now. See, I didn't change anything. I don't know what's going on there. Alright, so this, however, is probably got... No, this is the... Let's just go back here so I don't have downtime for all my people. Because people actually... I mean, sometimes I go in here and I'm very pleased because it says, oh, somebody's using Starlanes. I can't shut it down yet. It's like, oh, it's so exciting. Somebody's using my skill. Anyhow, so, right, it's there. So let's go and do our last swan song here. And preview it. Boom. So it should be there. We'll try it here. Talk to StarSquad.
Sorry, this action is not available in simulation.
StarSquad.
Sorry, this action is not available in simulation.
Hey, I guess it would help if I spelled it right. Maybe that's what I was doing wrong.
Sure, here's StarSquad.
Java.lang.illegal state exception. Joe.starsquad.data.starsquad state. State equals 0. Input symbol equals input. Welcome not handled.
Well, it seems that we have achieved nothing. Oh, God. Okay, so what that means is that... So, I'll just talk about this, then we'll go to wrap it up. So, the state handler stuff that I have is all kind of nifty. If you see I have handle welcome, that handles a welcome intent, that's fine. That's pretty straightforward. That's actually baked into it. Now, what's not baked into it, which is kind of interesting, is that here I have do advert. There's a bunch of other things. Let's go into the core, because there's more on that. You can see all these other functions, do query call sign, do set call sign, do query name. These are actually all the intents that I have defined in the application. Okay, so we can go to the audio model and we can see those there. But the thing is, what happens, you see, is the runtime knows about the audio model. Okay, and it uses Java reflection to do. When it's got an intent from the audio model, when it starts up, part of what it does is reindexes itself and works out that, oh, by the way, this is the same name as the intent name. This must be the handler for that intent. And so it can go get the audio request find the intent ID, look for you, and says, oh, here's a function, and calls that function for that intent. The do launch is kind of hard-coded, but everything else is soft-coded in that way. And there's also a... may not be in here, but no, it's not in there, but it will be on the squad one. I may not have input. Yeah, handle default, which is if it can't find one to do it, it calls this handle default, which I believe is where this message is coming from. No, actually, no, it's throwing a. Yeah, why can it not be handled? It should never get there because there's a default. It should handle default. Alright. I don't know what's going on here. Alright, well, I have spun my wheels this entire thing and have not got to the point where we can then start adding in permission stuff like that. So, I do apologize. Thank you for the 6 people watching for having spent your whole time watching me witter away here with my code. Hopefully, the code has inspired you. Maybe there's some interesting information you can use there, etc., like that. I will go off and get this to the point where I want to add in the permissions and work out how to do it. And then for my next talk, I will come back and actually show you the permissions and actions, and we can explore how they work. And I will speak to the discovery process that I went through for the stuff. And hopefully that will be of more value. That will sort of get you closer to what you want to know and be much more informative than this exciting process of watching me type code on the screen. It's just like that. So again, my apologies, or whatever like that. But the way I understand it works, is that you request these permissions, it goes to that, you get this canned text that comes back there. What I wanted to experiment with is exactly what can you put in the string you send back, because it will say that string before the stuff. Now right now, typically you launch one of the games, like Alexa, open StarLanes.
There was a problem with the requested skills response.
The kickoff thing isn't going that long time. Give it a couple of minutes like that. But it comes in, it has this little music it plays, it has a da-da-da and his intro and stuff like that. Alexa, open StarLanes.
There was a problem with the requested skills response.
And that's kind of nifty. That's part of the signature thing like that. And so rather than, the first time you launch it, it goes up, hey, can I have your email address? It'd be nice if it came up and said, oh, boom, 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 boom. Like, hey, welcome to StarLanes. It's exciting. It's wonderful. I noticed you haven't registered. We'd like you to register. And then ask for the email thing like that. So what I want to see is if I can stick into that response packet to get it to SSML. I could put SSML in there. I could put a sort of a longer sort of intro into there and see what it might allow, because that would be a more gentle introduction like that. Otherwise, I might sort of play with supporting dual mode, so you don't have to register it. That you only need to register it if you want to link to your other skills. Initially, there's just going to be the one skill on Google Home. We'll bring StarLanes over pretty quickly. But these are the kind of things I want to explore that I did not get to and will not be able to play with. What I'd like to hear back from people is if you go off and play with this yourselves. They document a couple of permissions. Let me just see if I can find somebody actually found that. I mean, I just kind of saw it there at some point. But somebody actually found they do actually have a doc on this. No, this is the oh, here we go. Requesting user information. Let me flip back to screenshot. Requesting user information. So what they talk about here is display name, given name, family name, course location, precise location. Now, these are all fairly obvious constants. I'm not sure whether they define the constants, but they're somewhere where they're like blah 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 underscore device precise location, stuff like that. So I actually just tried blah 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 underscore email, and it gave me the email, which I thought was wonderful. Now they don't document it here, so that's an interesting thing, and perhaps I should ask them. Although I'm not sure. I'm not on the beta anymore, so I'm not sure I'm allowed to ask my beta contacts things, but because it's not technically to do with the beta skill. But we'll see. Well, that's what they say you can get. So it'd be very interesting to see if other people mess around and find other constants that are supported and that other information you can get back. I'm not sure what I want to. Zip code would be nifty, but actually zip code and city. I guess it says it gets it there with the course location. Oh, coordinates and street address. Okay. For precise. Okay. Family name, given name, display name. Not sure how they all differ. But yeah, play with this, see what comes back. And again, you find other uses for it yourself. That would be kind of cool. Let me know about that. Otherwise, I will away at this and get it working. And once it's working, then I will share with you what I did to get it working, which hopefully will be more informative. So again, thank you for paying attention. If you're watching this long, thank you very much again. And we'll connect probably next week, and we'll talk about that. Or if everybody's like, no, we get it, we'll do promotion. So, let's see. People still okay, let's just try one right. Alexa, open StarLanes.
There was a problem with the requested skills response.
That's not good. So I got some downtime. Well, I know what I'm going to be doing for the next half hour is working out why Starlines is down, getting back up here. So thank you all for watching. I'll play the goodbye music. See you next week.